What's up, guys? Welcome back to the last basically episode of Theories with Nia. It's been a long journey. Well, it's only been like I think like 4 or 5 episodes, not that deep, but it's been fun. It's been great talking about these different theories that I either made up or heard about, did a little bit of research on. So today we're gonna end with the last theory to end this whole series. Today we're going to talk about the Mandela effect. As we all know, Mandela effect, pretty known, pretty. We all understand the synopsis of basically what it is. I think it's a very interesting one. I think it's my favorite one so far because it's one that just keeps on happening and happening to me and other people around that I know. If you don't know, um, the Mandela effect is basically like to put it into like simple words, like say if you um saw something like, for example, this says WIUR. I don't even know if you can see from the side, but say if you see that and then you thought you saw it, and the next day it says IUR, but the whole time it's definitely just said IUR, but you saw WIUR, like that's basically just a Mandela effect. Or like, for example, like um if you ever I put an example here, like when Darth Vader said, Luke, I am your father, like when he was saying who he is, but that actually never happened. It's just something you think that happened, but just realistically never happened, but you swore it happened. But basically, um, the Mandela effect is a guy just named Nelson Mandela. Uh, he was apparently he died in prison in 1980s. Even though he didn't pass away until 2013, but people swore he died in prison, but he really passed away in 2013. Basically, Nelson Mandela was a guy, uh, very famous guy only for this effect. People knew he went to jail in the 1980s, but people swore up and down that he died in jail, like was killed in jail, the whole spiel. But realistically, he just died in 2013, and people swear to this day that this happened, even though um it never happened. So like, what's going on here is like our memory lying? Does reality just change itself, or is something just far stranger just at work? But today's episode, we're diving deep into the Mandela effect, what it is, why it happens, the most famous examples, and whether it's a glitch in the universe or a glitch in the human mind. I personally think it's just a glitch in the human mind. The the human mind likes to play tricks on us, especially like at certain parts of our life. For example, your mind plays more tricks on you when you're like asleep or like half asleep. Fairly interesting. Um, but yeah, so the term Mandela effect was basically invented in 2009 by a paranormal researcher named Fiona Broom. She discovered that along with many others, shared a vivid memory of Nelson Mandela dying in South Africa prison in 1980s. These are memories of like televised funerals, public speeches of mourning, global headlines, except none of it happened. And people swear up and down that this all happened, like a whole funeral, a whole speech. It was televised, it was everywhere. Everybody knew it was on the news, but it never actually happened. Actually, Mandela was released from prison in 1990. He became South Africa's first black president in 1994 and lived in until December 5th, 2013 when he died. The disconnect between confidence and reality is like basically the core example of the Mandela effect. It's just a large group of people who share the same false memory. Um, this is just what a mistake. This is what mistakes is different from a simple mistake, a lapsing recall, or just one person misremembering something. Like basically, so basically, the Mandela effect is just a collective, persistent, emotionally like that's just convincing. People don't say, "Oh, it must be a mistake." They say, "No, I know how it was." This is very common in just in school in general. Like when you hear a teacher say something about, oh, homework was due Friday, but really homework was due tonight, but you swore up and down that the teacher said homework was due Friday, and everybody in the classroom said homework was due Friday, and the teacher said no, I said it was due today. That's basically a little bit of the Mandela effect. You swear something happened, but it really never happened. Um, Going into that, let's go over to like some famous like examples of the Mandela effect. I'm gonna talk about the Bernstein Bears. I don't know if like my I'm not I never watched the Bernstein Bears, so I doubt a lot of people in my age group because I'm 22 and I was born in 2003, so I didn't really grow up on the Bears. I want to say the Bernstein Bears are like before my time. I'm not really too entirely sure, but besides that, if you know it, you know. If you don't, you don't. But the thing with the Bernstein Bears is that many adults vividly, more so like my sisters and maybe my parents, they vividly remember that the children's book as the Bernstein was with an E. So basically, Bernstein. So Bernstein with an E. But people like my parents and like my sisters and my older sisters and people older than me, like in their 30s, they always said that the Bernstein was like with an A, so like Bernstein, so like Bernstein. So it was with an A, but really Bernstein was with an E. And people swore up and down that the book had a Bernstein with an A, which is odd because Bernstein with an A would be Bernstein, like in my opinion, if I was pronouncing it. But that's what people say. Even parents, teachers, children remembering, like learning it, like have been spelling it wrong for years, which is odd enough because it says Bernstein on the book, but people swore up and down that it was an A. That's one of the older ones. I'm not really too sure on this one. I never really cared, but the second example would be the Monopoly Man. As we all know, okay, we've all played Monopoly. We know the Monopoly Man. I swear, I personally remember him wearing the monocle. He had the monocle. So like the little eye thing with the chain back, he had the monocle. But apparently he did not have the monocle this whole time. But I've played Monopoly. I played it on my phone. I played it with my family, played it with my friends. I've watched people play it on YouTube. I've seen it. And I've seen his character. I've seen him on ads. I've seen him on everything, you know? And I swear, I really swear that he was wearing a monocle. He was not wearing a monocle. He was barefaced this whole time. Whole time. And I couldn't disagree more because I swear he was wearing a monocle. People were making comments about it, and all of a sudden they wanted to change it. And I think that's what happened. I think that's exactly what happened. The people who made Monopoly purposely changed it so we could be all messed up in the head. Insane. But it's not true, unfortunately. Next example, Star Wars. Not too big on Star Wars. Be honest, I never watched Star Wars before. I know a lot of people are gonna not like me for that because I don't watch Star Wars. I personally just cannot get into it. Like, it's just not interesting to me. I mean, maybe this summer break, because I'm graduating and I'm just working, so I'm gonna have a lot of time on my hands. Maybe I'll just binge watch it. I'll try, but I also have to do research because there's like certain orders. It's just a whole big thing. But anyways, back to Mandela effect. Luke, I am your father. I personally, I've never watched it, but I've personally heard people say like, "Oh, like Darth Vader is Luke's father." Like that's something that just I know from just hearing through the grapevine. Like Darth Vader is Luke's father, without knowing the whole story. But Darth Vader is Luke's father. But I know who Darth Vader is, and I know who Luke is. So I kind of know the whole big spill about it. Apparently, he never said that in like one of the movies, and that makes me want to go back to see if he really said it or not. And people said like if you go back in movies, he never said that. But people are saying that he said that because that's the only way they will find out. I mean, you find out like I think you find out like later on, like as the movie goes on. But apparently, he never said it. Um, But I think half the world or half the Star Wars fans, like more than half Star Wars fans, swore up and down that he says like Luke, I am your father in like one of the scenes where they're like fighting or something and trying to defeat Darth Vader. Darth Vader, like it's like this whole big thing. But hey, I'm not a Star Wars fan, but I'll see if it's really true or not. Um, The Lion and the Lamb. This is kind of like I put this in here because this one is like about the Bible, like the Bible verse. I've been to Sunday school, Um, I've read the Bible because of Sunday school, but um, I'm not like I don't have a lot of memory when it comes to that because I was younger. But I do kind of remember this. So basically, in the Bible, many people remember the Bible verse, "The lion shall lie down with the lamb." But the verse actually says the wolf should dwell with the lamb. I honestly do remember like thinking like now thinking about it, like especially when I was writing this down, um the lion shall lie down with the lamb. I do think that was the verse. Like that just makes more sense. Like especially like the saying that's like the lion himself shall not whatever, like are you the lion or the lamb? Like people make those two like comparisons a lot, especially with just like real world examples. So I feel like the lion and the lamb made more sense, especially like hearing it like on TV, for example, like the Game of Thrones, like the lion shall not dwell himself on something else. And then they're like, are you the lion or the sheep or the lion or the lamb? Something like that, right? But apparently it's the wolf shall dwell with the lamb, which does not make sense because wolf doesn't really come up in a lot of examples when you're putting yourself like as like compare yourself as like an animal. Most people say lion, not really wolf. So I kind of don't understand that one. Well, hey, they say it is. They say it is. Maybe I just got to go back and read the Bible verse. You never know. Maybe you do too. All right. Shazam. No, this is a movie that doesn't exist called Shazam. I'm actually going to read this. It says, thousands of people remember a 1990s movie called Shazam, starring comedian Sinbad as a genie. No such film exists. This film does not exist. Like 1990s film doesn't exist. I think Shazam is a Shazam movie now, but before that, never existed. I thought it always existed because that's why they made a second Shazam movie because they based it off the first one. Never existed. Never even happened. This character, the person, Sinbad, a comedian, never did that. Like, never did anything. Such a film like that. But there is a similar movie, Kazam, in 1996, starring Shaquille O'Neal. But people remember specific scenes, quotes, VHS, cover art, none or which are real, which is odd enough because I find it crazy that like in all these theories, like people are always saying like I remember this, I remember that, and it's like very very specific details, and it's very odd because these details don't exist. So it's like, how can your mind just trick you into something like that, or just make up something in your head? Honestly, couldn't this fall into delusion? Because you know delusion is a real sickness, and a lot of people have it, but I'm not a psychologist. I minor in it, psychology. I'm not really a psychologist. I'm not getting my master's in it. Just getting my minor in it. But I think it's a form of delusion because now we're going on with the psychological explanations of all these things, right? Now let's ground this in science. So memory is reconstructive, not recorded, as you can say. We don't replay memories like video files. Instead, every time we recall something, we rebuild it in our head. For example, dreams. Dreams are not real. Dreams are what you just memories in the back of your head that you rebuild in your head when you're dreaming, when you're sleeping. Not real. Dreams are never real. I mean, according to people, dreams are real and they have signs. Different dreams. I don't know. Instead, details are filed and used in context, expectations, and emotion. This means memory cannot change over time without us noticing, obviously. Um, Confabulation. I don't know what that means, but I had to do research on it. Um, So apparently the brain hates gaps. Um, when information is missing, the mind fills it in, and once it's filled, it feels real. Okay, that makes sense. So everybody has gap memories, and they try and try and try and try and try and think, what is that memory gap? And it's blurry. And you make up a gap because that gap makes sense to you, but that might not be the real gap. You feel what I'm saying? So confabulated memories are not lies. They're just sincere but inaccurate creations. For example, dreams. Our brains are knowledge and frameworks called schemas. When new information doesn't fit perfectly, when it doesn't perfectly fit, the brain reshapes reality to match the expectations, especially with logos, characters, or phrases. Like I said, you forget something, it's blurry, you make something up, makes sense to you, might not make sense in general because it probably never happened, but that's basically it. Um, Social reinforcement. The Mandela effect spreads because of online formulas, social media, group discussion. When others say, I remember that too, your confidence increases. And even if you were originally uncertain, all of a sudden, you remember. Mandela effect is kind of just like I do see it kind of being like a follower. Like some people, some if it's a it's like in school. The teacher asks you if it's A, B, or C. You get C. Everybody else gets B. You pick B because the whole crowd says B, but it really was C. It's following. You see something that everybody else does, so you just do it because you think it's right. But really, you could be wrong. You could be right, and they could be wrong. So these are more radical theories. Some people believe that Mandela effect isn't psychological at all. It's like a parallel universe. So like people make movies about it all the time about parallel universe. We all seen it. So theory suggests that we're slipping between alternate timelines. That I cannot get behind. There's no scientific proof that there are parallel, like besides movies and people just making stuff up as it goes. Like I cannot get behind that. Like I'm more of a realistic type of person, and that's just not realistic to me in reality. But yeah. In one timeline, Mandela died in prison. In another time, he became president. Our memories, as said, come from previous realities. Um, no, he died in 2013. He was in prison, but he died in 2013. Now, let's get into our closing thoughts. Do we think the Mandela effect is real or we're just delusional? Let's take a second to think. I think it's delusional. I do think what I said about people following each other is the main culprit of the situation. One person just had a gap in their brain and they said this happened, and people were hopping on the bandwagon because everybody was on the bandwagon. Then more people hop on that bandwagon. Now the whole world thinks that this bandwagon is real. The bandwagon was never real in the beginning. Now people are like, no, I remember this, that, and the third. No, sis, you don't remember. You just made it up. Delusional. That's what I think. That's what I personally think. Is this controversial? Probably. Um, do I care? No. But I do like this theory. And for that, that brings us to the end and final last episode of Theories with Nia. It's been fun. Um, I've learned a lot. I did a lot of research. Um, yeah, I hope you guys enjoy the weather today. All the seniors enjoy graduation because I know I'm graduating. But yeah, peace up, A Town down.